What's going on, my beautiful people? Welcome on into yet another edition of the Mafia Huddle, hosted by yours truly. I'm Carl Jones. 18 days away from the Bills opener down in Houston, taking on those hated Texans. My summer's gone. I can't believe it. But you know what? Football is going to be the reason why. So be it. Joining me today, co-host of the Shout podcast, a Bonna alum, Olean native, good friend, good everything, good vibes, good person, anything under the sun. My man Ryan Talbot. Big dog, how we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. You work in the school system, so like this whole summer winding down thing, does it hurt you too?
A little bit. I'm also a glutton for punishment, and I teach summer school, so I don't know how much of a summer I really have.
Understood on that. Well, you know what? Amen to you. We need more people like you out there. Like I said, everybody, good dog, good man, everything. Like I just mentioned, Ryan Talbot. That is the Bills preseason finale tomorrow at the new Highmark Stadium, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some starters will play. Josh Allen will not be one of those. When you heard Joe Brady say that on Tuesday, your initial reactions, are you cool with Josh putting on the ball cap and not suiting up tomorrow night?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the smart thing to do. There's nothing to gain from Josh Allen playing in the preseason finale. You saw him at the joint practice. You saw him in the first preseason game. At this point in his career, too, you know exactly what he is as a quarterback. And to be honest, this has been one of his best summers. It looks like his deep ball is locked in for the first time in a long time, and he's been pretty much on the money throughout the summer.
Yeah, I'm right with you. Honestly, if Josh Allen, he probably was ready for week one after the second day of training camp, to be quite frank with you. He's someone who's that talented. He's seen everything, been there, done that. I have no issues with him not playing. It will be about a month in between the last time he's been in game action because he only played in the preseason opener, didn't play in the second preseason game either. But once again, is Josh bleeping Allen? How much preparation does he need? Other players that I don't expect to suit up, if Josh isn't playing, there's no need for a DJ Moore. I don't think if Josh isn't playing, there's no need for a Deion Dawkins, maybe not even a Spencer Brown. So I think there's going to be some other high quality starters who won't go out there. But there are going to be some players who are going to see significant snaps this year who are going to suit up tomorrow night. I think some of those guys include, if we're going to start on the defensive side of the ball, the young pups on the defensive line, whether that's a Landon Jackson, a TJ Sanders, Dwayne Carter. What are your expectations for those guys? What do you hope to see tomorrow night at Highmark?
Yeah, I feel like Landon Jackson's kind of answered a ton of the questions already this summer, but you want one last showing of what he can do against the run, against the pass. This is someone that is clearly better fit for a 3-4 defense. You didn't get to see a lot of him last year, obviously due to injuries and opportunities, but a 4-3 was going to be a tough go for him. He's come in, he's looked the part against the run, shown some juice in terms of getting after the quarterback. I want to see that out of TJ Sanders a little bit more consistency. He's had his moments. And then for Dwayne Carter, that's an interesting name to mention because I think he's playing for his spot on this roster tomorrow.
We'll talk about Dwayne Carter a little bit later on in the show when we talk about some of the roster decisions. The Bills have to go from 90 to 53 by, I believe, 6 p.m. on Sunday, August 30th. I want to stay on the defensive line. TJ Parker isn't a name we've talked about a lot. He's the Bills' highest draft pick. He's someone that's supposed to help out this pass rush, especially deep into the calendar when it matters most. I've had some people ask me, some fans ask, hey, what has TJ Parker been like? Has he lived up to the billing? And I push back a little bit and say, he was never supposed to be a starter. Bradley Chubb, you paid a lot of money. And then Greg Rousseau also is a highly paid player as well. Those guys aren't going to the bench. TJ Parker was always going to be eased into this rotation. Based off what we've seen through this first month of training camp and full pads, what have you seen from number 99?
Yeah, I've seen some real flashes from him. I've been very encouraged with TJ Parker. You go to the first preseason game, he gets a sack against Carolina. Against Cleveland, he draws a holding penalty. Probably could have been called for hitting Shore Sanders in the helmet on that play, but he did draw a hold on that same instance. So he's had two games where he's pretty much almost had a sack each game. He's flashed as a pass rusher. You feel like he has all the intangibles to be good against the run, but you said it. He's not meant to be a starter in year one. You have the two starters in front of him, and I'd also say Michael Hoyt as well. So he's going to be coming in as that outside linebacker number 4. But that's not to say the Bills won't be able to get creative and find packages and ways to utilize him. I like what I've seen so far from him. You just have to have your expectations in a realistic place.
We've said it ad nauseum, not just this offseason, but like let's just say the last 3, 4 years. You need waves of players who can get after the quarterback. We watched the Super Bowl last year with the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think a casual fan can name one edge rusher, maybe Boye Mafe,
Mm.
maybe. And that's actually no. A casual fan cannot name his that good brother's name. No disrespect to him. Yet they still were able to get after the quarterback because they had a bunch of B minus to B plus players who can get after the signal caller. So listen, yes, TJ Parker may not get 10 sacks as a rookie, but if he is still a competent player off the bench, I think the strength in numbers mantra that the Bills are probably going for this year on the defensive line will hold some weight if he can hold up his end of the bargain. I want to go backwards a little bit here to the secondary. I know people going to accuse me of being biased. I get it. But I truly feel as if the young pups in the secondary, whether it's at the nickel position with Jordan Hancock, even back at safety, Kani Walker, Davison, Igbinosun, they have really impressed me throughout this summer. Is there a player that has got your eye a little bit?
Yeah, it's Walker. I told my co-host Matt Perino a few weeks ago, I put it in Sharpie that he was going to make this roster. Now, whether or not that happens, time will tell. But I have him slotted in as cornerback 4 on the outside, behind Christian Benford and Max Hairston, IGB. But then it's Walker. He has outplayed Toriano Pride Jr., a draft pick for this team this year. So to me, he is firmly there. Now, Buffalo, though, can get creative with their roster. You mentioned Jordan Hancock. He is having the summer of his life right now. He can play cornerback, he can play safety. If the Bills feel like the top 3 outside cornerback are there, you also have D. Elford, that, yes, he is the starting nickel, but he has the versatility to play on the outside. So maybe you sit there and say he can be outside corner 4 as well as the nickel. Then Hancock could be slotted into that nickel role if you ever had to press that emergency button on D. Elford. So it's not a lock in the case of Kani Walker, but he has blown me away this summer with his play. He has not looked like a UDFA. There's been a few mistakes here and there, but you can expect that from any rookie or UDFA.
Dan, keep that good brother on the screen for a second here, Kani Walker. I remember it might have been this day, early on in camp, where I looked to my colleague on the beat, Dan Fates. I said, listen, I know I'm going to sound biased here, but 41's making this team. Because players who are his height, he's 6'2", he's long. Look at the arms. He can scratch his knees standing up. One of those guys. They don't grow on trees. And I know coaches. Coaches, you know this. You're a teacher. I feel like I can just, if you give me tools, let me do the rest. I feel like I can just mold any player that I want, whether that's true or not. But he's someone who's 6'2", who can run a little bit. I know the Bills are super excited, and I will not be surprised if come Sunday that he is still on the active 53-man roster. Because if you cut him, I think some other coach out there is gonna be like, oh yeah, I can work with that a little bit, right? Even though I think D. Alford, like you mentioned, clouds the conversation a little bit. We got to touch on the topic that I think has been a little, I don't want to say toxic, but I think has been very engaging over the last 72 hours. That is the cornerback 2 position. Max Hairston and Davison Igbinosun, 2 players who I fully expect to be on the field Thursday evening against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You've been out at practice. You've been at the games. What do you take away from that CB2 battle right now with Max versus Davison Igbinosun?
I feel like it's a lot closer than some people might think. I feel like Max Hairston, he's getting ramped up from an injury. I understand that, but I don't know how much of a ramp up period he needs or how much time the Bills can give him. He's struggling. There's no other way to put this. He's given up some long touchdowns in practice this week. You and I were there at the joint practice in Cleveland. Denzel Boston was eating his lunch all day long, minus that final play in 2-minute drill where he came up with a pass breakup and near interception. He struggles against physical receivers. If he can't get his hands on you right away, these receivers on opposing teams or in practice settings seem to be able to create separation. I like Max Hairston a lot in terms of the speed, a lot of the footwork. But I feel like it's a work in progress in terms of him playing man. I know he said he's done it before, but he played in a very zone-heavy system in college and then obviously year 1 in the NFL.
Yeah, I see it the same way you do. I think this conversation says a little bit more about Max than it does IGB. I don't think
Yeah.
IGB has been bad by any means, but I don't think that he's Christian Benford from 2022. Remember when Christian Benford hit the scene as a 6th-round pick? We were like, yeah, I know Kyer is a first rounder, but 47 has to play. He's been that impressive. I don't think that's the case with 21, but Max, I don't want to say disappointing. That's a little too strong for me because disappointing implies give up, bust, don't put him out there. But if you expected him to take that next natural progression to get better, last year we saw some of the highs of the interceptions, but there were two concerns we had coming out of his rookie campaign. One being health. Well, he was hurt this offseason. We already saw that. And then the second one, like you just mentioned and you laid out eloquently, how does he match up against more physical players to prevent some of the big explosive plays? And over the last month or so, I don't think that's eased my concerns by any means. But once again, you've said this, I've said this. The games are a much different ball game. He can be someone that can turn things around in an instant come week 1 against the Houston Texans. I want to go to the kicking position for a second here. The sexy position. Everyone want to talk about Tyler Bass. I'm kidding. You only talk about kickers when they miss kicks. Where are you at with Tyler Bass? He had a good game, and then the joint practice, maybe things weren't going his way. Do you feel comfortable heading into week 1 with Tyler Bass as the Bills' starting kicker?
Not necessarily. I mean, this is a player that when he's missed, he said he's rushing his mechanics or there's been something wrong there. You know, you've got to have your mechanics down by week 1 because the Bills gave you a lot of grace this offseason. They didn't bring in any competition whatsoever. And I get it. The contract's there. He's likely the favorite to be on this roster, even if they would have brought in competition. But if he blows a game or two for this team in a close setting where he misses, there's going to be a lot of pressure from the fan base and maybe internally for them to bring someone else in to push him a little bit. He's missed the entire season last year. We know that, and he's had some ups and downs already this summer. So I can't sit here and say that I'm in a good place with Tyler Bass. It's just kind of no choice right now other than going with him come week 1.
All right, good people at home who's watching us, we're now about to give Ryan Talbot the title of Buffalo Bills general manager. That means he has to cut this roster down from 90 to 53. It's time to earn your money around here, Ryan. It's time to put on that big boy hat. There are a couple of positions that I think are very intriguing when it comes to cutting from 90 to 53. Let's start at the running back position. Every year, it feels like there's a training camp darling. What's the phrase that people are using? Preseason darling, fan favorite, whatever the case may be. Yeah. I think this year that is Ian Wheeler. And what's complicated this a little bit is the absence of Ty Johnson, who is dealing with a hamstring injury. We do not know his return to the field. But I spoke with Ian Wheeler on Tuesday, sat down with him. Make sure you guys look out for that on Bills Kickoff Live tomorrow, 5 questions. Very interesting dude. He's hungry. He wants this. He is someone who has been so close to making the active roster as a rookie, but then tore his ACL. Then his story is amazing. I can't wait for you guys to hear that tomorrow. Do you think there is any chance he makes the active roster? And if so, if not, do you think the Bills will bring him back on the P squad?
So if the Bills feel like Ty Johnson is not ready to start the season, they can obviously put him on the IR for the first 4 weeks. And then there is that opportunity for Wheeler, who has come in here, coming off of a stint in the UFL when he was someone you couldn't bring to the ground in the playoffs. They're averaging 10 yards per carry at one point. I was impressed with him as a rookie as well. When he was with Chicago, he had a really nice game against the Bills that season a week before he tore his ACL. So he's done all these things. He's looked the part of an NFL player when given the opportunity. It's just a numbers game in Buffalo. And if Ty Johnson's good to go week 1, I don't see that opportunity for him to be on this roster. I think that he would be a safe bet for the practice squad. I know if Bills fans are saying, if he goes or if he's cut, he's not going to clear waivers. I don't want to say every team has an Ian Wheeler, but it does feel like a lot of teams have their version of Wheeler and Frank Gore Jr. And I think for the first time since 2022, when the Bills had Raheem Blackshear and Duke Johnson on their practice squad, the Bills are going to carry 2 running backs on their practice squad this year.
The only question that I have about the running back situation heading into Sunday, if I'm Frank Gore Jr., put myself in his shoes for a second here. I've been here, I believe this is his 4th or 3rd or 4th season here in Buffalo. If I want to someday make the active roster, I don't think Buffalo is ever going to be the place. So this could be a situation where he respectfully declines a practice squad invitation from the Bills and says, you know what, let me go somewhere else to see if I have a better chance of making that active roster, right? I'll join the Commanders P squad, right? And I see the pathway to their spot as well. Also, injuries play a role into this. If someone's second string running back gets hurt this weekend, that changes the roster gymnastics of who can go where. But I'm with you. As long as Ty is in some relative good health heading into week 1, I see it being Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, and then obviously Jimbo Cook leading the running back room. Let's go to the big fellas up front, the guys who keep Josh Allen's jersey nice and toasty and clean. the Bills announced that Alec Anderson won the left guard position over Austin Corbett, which I think adds a different layer to this that I hadn't thought of until I saw it on the X last night. Who are the reserve offensive linemen for the Bills heading into week one? I think you can make a safe assumption that Lloyd Cushenberry is going to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, where do you think this shakes out? Because the swing tackle is also a position that the Bills have highly valued. Do you feel comfortable with that position? Is Austin Corbett a lock to make the roster at this point? Where do you land on the reserve Bills offensive lineman?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in terms of the swing tackle, or that's has me a little bit worried. Jude Bowery has not had a great preseason. He's been seen in a walking boot as of late. So we don't even know what his roster status is going to be for week one. I will say I feel like Tylen Grable has come on strong the last few weeks. He had a rough go of it early on. I think that he is your swing tackle to start the season behind what you already have there in your starters, obviously. Austin Corbett, I think the Bills would be foolish not to have him on their roster. 90 games of experience in the NFL, 70 plus starts. You go with Alec Anderson, you see what it looks like in a very tough 4-game stretch to start the season. If there is any letdown on the left side of that line, you can always turn to your veteran. So I don't hate that. Where it gets interesting, though, is, Lloyd Cushenberry, I agree. He's another player that I have on this roster. Cedric Van Pran Granger is one of the most interesting names to me. I think he makes this roster, but I also think that if there's one player that the Bills get calls on, it's going to be Van Pran Granger. He can play center, he can play guard, he has a little bit of that versatility. And if the Bills decide to move him, that gives an opportunity to an Armaj Reed Adams, who has really impressed me in the preseason. The only knock on him is he's really just a right guard only right now. He doesn't have the versatility that some of these other players do. And, besides that, that's probably your backups, unless Bowery's not good to go. And then you have to consider Chase Lunt or seeing what's out there via cuts after, 6 p.m. on Sunday.
I think that's how I land with it as well, General Manager Ryan Talbot. I'll mention this, though. Offensive line depth is like the biggest fallacy strong, but everyone's chasing it. There's not enough 6'5", 300-pound plus human beings walking the earth that also are good at football. There's not enough of them out there. I think if there's an opportunity if it is Brandon Beane, you cut down day, you see, if I can trade like a 7th for someone that has a little bit more experience than Tylen Grable, that offensive tackle, I can see that being a scenario. Or the inverse, if the Cleveland Browns come calling and say, listen, we need Corbett to come start, we'll give you a 5th for Austin Corbett. Do you sacrifice that depth, that proven depth like you just mentioned in Austin Corbett? I don't know, but I think that's a fascinating – general manager, you just earn your money right there. Let's go to the other side of the ball before we get up out of here. The D-line, I think, is the most fascinating position in terms of cut down day, because this is where you can get a little creative in terms of trades, maybe stashing some guys on the P squad. Is there a player that you have your eye on, just thinking about their livelihood over the next 5 days and their spot on this roster?
Javon Solomon is probably the one for me. I have him on my initial 53-man roster, and I know that's more outside linebacker than anything else.
Include all those guys. Include all those
guys. I feel like he's still competing with Mike Dana, Andre Jones Jr. to a certain extent as well. But we've heard nothing but praise for Solomon throughout the summer. He's had some nice moments. He's created some pressures that have led to opportunities for other players on this team. He's someone there. When I look at the D-line, that kind of, I don't want to say it feels set in stone, but Greg Gaines coming in to become the backup behind Deion Walker, I feel like that's your 1-2 punch there. Fedarian Mathis is going to go immediately to that suspended list for the first 3 weeks, so you can figure out what to do with him when that time comes. We talked about the young guys already, and TJ Sanders and Landon Jackson, and then Ed Oliver and Zane Durant are my other starters starters and backups on that D-line. So I feel like the D-line's there. Dwayne Carter is going to have to really impress on Thursday. I went back and rewatched the Cleveland game, and I will say he stood out. This was probably his best performance as a run defender that I've seen from him. But we haven't seen enough this summer for me to sit here and say that he's justified a spot on this roster. There have been a lot of times where he's been washed out on plays, taken out, pancaked, etc. So if he can come out on Thursday, I mean, this game might be more important to Dwayne Carter than anyone else on this Bills roster.
Man, you got to stop reading my notebook. Stop reading my notes. The two players that I had about that Thursday means more to them than anyone else. Javon Solomon as well as Dwayne Carter on the screen right now. And I know people say all the time, and I agree with it. These coaches see so much of these guys in practice. We can't overweight what happens on the game because you get more reps in practice than you do in a game. Having said that, if these bad boys go out there and play with their hairs on fire, on Thursday, to say it won't have no impact, maybe not even for here, but a different team coming in grabbing you via trade. Whether, once again, we just saw the Houston Texans making a trade. You just saw the Kansas City Chiefs trading for interior offensive lineman. This isn't just auditioning for the Buffalo Bills, but also teams around the National Football League. One more position before we get on up out of here. Let's go to the safety spot. I don't want to say it's cut and dry for me, and I don't want to speak for you, General Manager. I'm just your assistant today. Who are the safeties that you have making the 53-man roster?
Yeah, I love this question. Cole Bishop, obviously, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Damar Hamlin comes in as safety number 3 for me. It's funny, a month or two ago, if you would have asked me about that, I would have said, I don't see a pathway for Damar Hamlin to make this roster. And yet he's done nothing but go out and outplay Geno Stone all summer. Geno Stone is gone on my projection. If I'm GM, he's not on this team. And then Jalen Kilgore is safety 4, knowing full well that I have Jordan Hancock with that versatility to play safety.
I'm just so happy that as your assistant that I agree with you, so you won't fire me from your staff. I'm just so happy. I see it the same way. I thought that heading into the year, Geno Stone's previous production, I know Cincinnati wasn't great, but he still was able to get his hands on the ball. And then obviously his tenure in Baltimore was much better. But I just assumed that would be an intriguing thing, but that just hasn't really sold me on it because I don't see the Bills keeping 6 safeties. And I don't want to sit up here and say I've watched all of Geno Stone's special teams reps, but he doesn't strike me as an ace in that regard either to justify keeping him around. So I think if, as it stands here today, listen, nope, not trying to be funny, but Damar Hamlin's playing his hometown team on Thursday. I think he's going to want to show out against the Pittsburgh Steelers for sure. Appreciate you so much today, Ryan, for sharing your valuable insight. Hopefully, some other NFL team, Brandon Beane's going to keep his job, at least for the foreseeable future. Hopefully, Cleveland, they might lose theirs, that you get that job. Where can the good people find your work, Ryan?
You can find my work at Syracuse.com and NYUp.com and on social media at Ryan Talbot Bills.
Listen, I thought you did a hell of a job. We can start you off as like a cap, specialist, analyst, or whatever. We'll work our way up to like the full general manager role, but I thought you did a hell of a job today, big dog.
I'll take it.
Well, that'll do it for today's edition of the Mafia Huddle. I appreciate you guys so much for tapping in and listening. Next week, make sure you guys tap in. I'm going to bring in someone from Houston to get you guys ready for that week 1 matchup against the Texans. I know the Bills are finally get over the hump and take care of business against C.J. Stroud, Derek Stingley, Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter. Holy cow, every player I'm naming right there saying C.J. Stroud is an all-pro caliber player. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.